At 23 minutes past 1 in the morning of April the 26th, 1986, the world was seconds away from its worst nuclear accident when reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power station in Soviet Union exploded. By morning, the physical devastation was revealed. The disaster brought about death and disease. The death toll was 30, which considerably small as compared to first feared, but was told to cause 1,000 cancers in Russia and 25,000 worldwide over a 70-year period. As we proceed to explain the events that escalated leading to the disaster, it will become clearer how money, greed, and power influence the unethical decisions made.
Chernobyl was a very unfortunate disaster which resulted from a series of unfortunate events. It all began when Deputy Chief Engineer Nikolai Foreman had recently been given a promotion. In light of this, he had recently introduced reactor number 4 to the Chernobyl plant. It all seemed as though everything was falling into place as the installation and operations of the reactor had met all deadlines, completely furnished. Or so they thought until the disastrous turn of events in 1986. The disaster stemmed from 3 separate issues that all led to a series of mishaps and bad decisions. On the given night of the incident, in the control room, routine tests for maintenance had to be performed on the reactor. Chief Engineer Anatoly Dyatlov, highest-ranking engineer, along with 2 junior operators, Akimov and Toptunov, was working the night shift. The test to be performed was governed by the Atomic Energy authorities and adhered to strict guidelines. However, Dyatlov did not agree. He insisted on doing the test at 200 megawatts, almost 3 times less than the recommended and safe conditions. With this being said, Dyatlov believed being chief engineer gave him the authority to change the operational parameters of the test. However, junior engineers Akimov and Toptunov did not agree and refused to cooperate. Dyatlov called them incompetent and insulted them as they tried to explain the dangers involved in running the test at a lower power. Dyatlov threatened their job and was eventually able to throw them into the necessary panic where they felt as though they had no other choice but to comply. Alarms repeatedly went off due to shortage of cooling water indicating problems, but Dyatlov didn't budge his judgment. Steam built in the reactor until the lids were being blown off. This was when Akimov decided to turn off all power to the reactor. Upon doing so, out of his good intentions, his actions resulted in a power surge resulting in the explosion. Why was Dyatlov so fixed on his decision, you may ask? Why was he so adamant on running this test? This could have resulted from 2 reasons. Firstly, Dyatlov was in trouble for being rude to his workers. His boss was due for a promotion, and a successful test could have helped Dyatlov land his boss's job. Dyatlov also held personal reasons. In the past, he was involved in an accident which resulted in his son's death. His rash decisions could have also been because of this. Lastly lies a secret where none of the engineers were even aware of. There was a fatal flaw in the reactor's design which makes it highly unstable at a lower power. Nikolai Foreman and his colleague Viktor Brukhanov opened the reactor early so that they earned substantial bonuses, disregarding all dangers involved in their decisions. It was a series of unforeseen mishaps which, when aligned, created the perfect disaster.
These are some challenges faced by the organization. External challenges faced by the organization are as follows. Tests were being highly demanded by Russia's atomic energy authorities, which were the proper maintenance procedures. There were a lot of false information of the infrastructure and design of the reactor. Substitute materials were used, resulting in a faulty design. It was a common practice by authorities to neglect problems encountered due to this defective design. Chernobyl director Viktor Brukhanov and his peers rushed for reactor number 4 to become operational so as to meet deadlines. According to the atomic energy authorities, it was possible for the reactor to run at a lower power than stipulated. However, this lower power limitation was not stated, which created assurance in Dyatlov's mind that he was fully capable of changing the procedure's guidelines. In most nuclear reactors where water is used as a coolant to moderate the reactivity of the nuclear core as the core heats up and produces more steam. The increase in steam bubbles or voids in the water reduces the reactivity of the nuclear core. This is an important safety feature found in most reactors built in the United States and other Western nations. However, not in the RBMK-1000, which use graphite to moderate the core's reactivity and to keep a continuous nuclear reaction occurring in the core. As the nuclear core heated and produced more steam bubbles, the core became more reactive, not less, creating a positive feedback loop that engineers refer to as positive void coefficient, resulting in an explosion.
When the biggest nuclear disaster in history occurred, it was a tragedy beyond awful. With a 2020 hindsight, the root cause of the explosion was obviously sheer greed, power, and the gullibility of money. As in every accident investigation, it was found that communications as well as corruption among and between engineers, the organization, and other personnel were faulty. Management culture was also very poor. It was deemed to be of an autocratic leadership, especially by Chief Engineer Nikolai Foreman, who at that time had been given a promotion. Their values consisted of doing everything that had to be done where it was beneficial to them of some sort. He was so focused, Mr. Dyatlov, as to how he can gain from a successful test that he allowed it to clutch his judgment. Mr. Dyatlov was rude to those beneath him and belittled them when they didn't follow his orders and threatened their jobs when they didn't. The employees described Chernobyl as a place to not ask too many questions. Do your job, get paid, and return home. It was depicted as in order to climb the ladder, corruption had to be involved. In 1993, the Advisory Committee on Safety on Nuclear Installation, ACS&I, investigated the Chernobyl disaster, among others, and concluded that the safety systems in these workplaces had broken down. These breakdowns were not caused by the method of managing safety, but rather by the problems with the safety culture of the organization. This organization was surrounded by political enfranchisement, since this was a community of its own. Chief Engineer Nikolai Foreman and Plant Director Victor P. Brukhanov were found guilty of gross violation of safety regulations, creating conditions that led to an explosion. It was concluded that Mr. Brukhanov bore most of the responsibility for the abuse of power. In addition to the engineers' unethical decisions, Chernobyl Plant Director Mr. Dyatlov had concealed the accident from authorities and local population. Thus, the government did not begin limited evacuation until about 36 hours after the disaster, which was concluded horrendous and a distasteful act of humanity. Within this nuclear disaster, it was of much disdain and unethical as the evolution and mobility of the bureaucratic procedures should have been put in place as it hardens and limits the proper scientific production with certainty.
There were 3 engineers in charge of the test: Alexander Akimov, the head of the shift unit, Leonid Toptonov, senior control engineer of the reactor shop, and Anatoly Dyatlov, deputy chief engineer. It was deduced that Akimov and Toptonov's value system somewhat went hand in hand with the engineers' code of ethics, since they did all they could to prevent the disaster. However, it was inevitable due to poor communication and safety practices within the culture of the organization. Further research showed that Akimov and Toptonov's hegemony went as follows: other-mindedness, self-preservation, and status being on top, followed by money or power. In contrast, Anatoly Dyatlov practiced poor engineering ethics as he disregarded clearly stated safety parameters for the test and disrespected his co-workers. Akimov, and Toptonov. Looking back, the hegemon of Anatoly Dyatlov was noticeable during the test. His value systems were status, power, money, followed by other mindedness and self-preservation. This greatly contributed to the poor safety culture and work ethics within the organization, since there wasn't anyone in that room who Dyatlov saw as his equal. The value systems of these engineers played a crucial role on the cause of disaster. Since Dyatlov was of higher status than everyone in the room, he insisted that the test should begin with no further delays when the power was back up to 200 megawatts. Status and power being on top brought him ignorance and led him to his downfall. After the first and second explosions, Dyatlov ordered reactor cooling with emergency speed. He assumed that the reactor was still intact and the explosion had been caused by hydrogen accumulating in the emergency tank of the safety control system. However, Akimov knew that those explosions may have caused a lot more damage. He called the fire station and Nikolai Fomin when it was reported that the reactor lid was blown off. Akimov and Toptonov followed emergency procedures to stabilize the plant and contain the damage. Akimov was already nauseous, but together with Toptonov, they sacrificed themselves, attempting to cool the reactor as they spent several hours turning the valves for the emergency feedwater pumps. The radioactive water in room 712 was half submerging the pipeline. Akimov and Toptonov were evacuated to the hospital after receiving 280 rounds in the room after 20 minutes turning the valves of the pipelines. Until Akimov's death, he insisted he had done everything correctly and had made no mistakes.
Could the Chernobyl disaster be avoided? The main errors that caused the Chernobyl disaster were human errors, design errors, automation errors. First error mentioned were human errors, which involved bad communication and decision making. The error could have been avoided by giving communication devices for more instructions and clarification of other issues. Human errors involve lack of proper communication, also dishonest among operators. There were negligence and lack of professionalism. Secondly, design errors resulted in unstable reactors. This could have been avoided by properly constructing the reactor with materials that are more suitable for the conditions. The reactor was made from cheap substitute materials, making it unapplicable to the designing parameters needed to produce power. This was also due to rushed designs to meet deadlines. The reactor's lid was not made from combustible material and resulted in an explosion at low power. The last of the main errors were automation, which involved a system to endanger security of the central. This could have been avoided by banning dangerous actions. As the power was turned off by Akimov, this resulted in a power surge where a blast of power illuminated through the plant, resulting in the horrific accident. So yes, the Chernobyl disaster could have been avoided if these actions were taken and proper procedures were followed and rules obeyed. In conclusion, this problem stemmed from even before the reactor was operational. Chief Engineer Nikolai Fomin and Plant Director Victor were found guilty of gross violation of safety regulations. The death toll was 31, but the disaster was said to have repercussions up to a 70-year period. Even after all that had happened, Dyatlov blamed the Atomic Energy Authorities for inconspicuous documents and refused to take any responsibility for his actions. Today, there is a cement structure over the reactor's core to contain the spread of radiation. A total of 9 million people have been affected directly or indirectly by the incident. As a result, we can all conclude that Chernobyl was a part of history that could have been avoided, and one where no one wants to relive.
Based on all the research we've done for the Chernobyl disaster, right? From everything that had happened and all the cases between Nikolai Fomin and Anatoly Dyatlov, what do you all conclude, or what have you learned from all that had happened? Personally, money Nikolai Fomin was earning was not enough in his eyes. He still cut corners, a lot of corners, to be able to earn more. Him and Viktor Bruganov and power in Anatoly Dyatlov's case, he insisted on having that higher stature, where he put people's lives and safety was on the back seat and he put people's life in danger.
Well, the reason they acted the way they did, in my opinion, was because of the Cold War. This Cold War basically had the Soviet Union in a state of greed, and everyone in the Union was power hungry, and you could see that from looking at Nikolai Fomin or Anatoly Dyatlov. They were all power hungry, they were rushing things to meet deadlines, to compete with the US and look good in the eyes of the world.
So basically, we're trying to see what explains their attitudes was because of the war, they wanted to have an upper hand, status-wise, or how the world saw them.
Yeah.
So, in order to have that upper hand, this unique nuclear plant would give them the reputation they wanted.
And because of that, that would have made the US suddenly afraid of Russia by having this big nuclear plant and they would have the upper hand. But during this World War II, Nikolai Fomin had to do things in a timely manner. Otherwise, the community of this Soviet Union would have been on the floor and nothing would have been done right. So he had to finish this on time. And yes, he had, like, his ethics decision was not right because he wanted, like, the promotion and money that came with it. But he also had thought about finishing on time in order to save his country.
Exactly. Even after the incident happened, official and Soviet Union government hid it from the public. Though they were exposed to 10,000 times more radiation than safe amounts, they got caught when Sweden picked up high traces of radiation. This was an inhuman act where no excuses were.
That's true. The hegemons were power, money, and status. This leading to corruption and the inevitable